And thanks to all my friends on the 5, and welcome to Hannity, and this is a Fox News alert. Freedom of speech is under attack. It is now open season on conservative voices all across the country. Michelle Malkin, Lou Dobbs, Larry Elder, Corey Lewandowski, Dr. Gina Loudon will all join us with reaction tonight. Now, also, we'll have tonight part 2 of my interview with the Vice President, Mike Pence. How does he govern while all the media talks about is Russia, Russia? Also, comedian Kathy Griffin back in the public eye just days after this vicious, vile anti-Trump photo shoot went public and cost her jobs. Now she's making a plea for First Amendment rights. Well, nobody's taking them away from her. The latest example of the left's free speech double standard, and we will explain this very important issue in tonight's opening monologue. All right, Kathy Griffin, earlier this week on social media, she did apologize for posing like an ISIS fighter with a mock bloody severed head that looks like President Trump. Now, today, the disgraced comedian held a press conference with her lawyers where she made an impassioned plea for her constitutional rights, which nobody's trying to take away. Watch this.
Regarding the image that I participated in, that apology absolutely stands. I feel horrible. I have performed in war zones. The idea that this, made people think of this tragedy, to have been touched by this tragedy, is horrifying and it's horrible. But I just wanted to say, if you don't stand up, you get run over. And what's happening to me has never happened, ever, in the history of this great country. This is America, and you shouldn't have to die for it. The death threats that I'm getting are constant, and they are detailed, and they are serious, and they are specific. And today it's me, and tomorrow it could be you. I believe so passionately about this. If I don't stand up and say this, I'm afraid there's going to be some 12-year-old nerdy girl like me in Forest Park, Illinois, who's going to maybe be watching me to see what I do. I've made fun of I made fun of Clinton. Oh, God, remember the Monica dress days? Those were the days. You could make dress jokes all day long, and nobody tried to kill you. You shouldn't have to die for this.
All right, that was only a small part of her press conference. Now, later in the program, we're going to tell you who Kathy's actually blaming, playing the victim, and who she thinks is trying to take her down. If it wasn't so downright pathetic, it's actually funny, and it's kind of insane, actually. But first, for decades, both on radio and television, I have stood up for the fundamental principle of freedom of speech. And by the way, that goes for people I completely disagree with. Last night, I played you multiple examples going back many, many years of me defending people even like Bill Maher and Stephen Colbert, and they have said horrific things on their programs. I have simply told you, my viewers, if you don't like what they're saying, all right, hit the on-off button or change the channel. Now, I feel that way about Kathy Griffin. I think what she did is beyond offensive. It's despicable. It's disgusting. But this week, when she came under scrutiny, I never called for her to be fired. Or do I want people not to attend her shows or boycotting her? And by the way, just one side note. It is kind of pathetic, her so-called friend, co-host, Anderson Cooper, over at CNN. How weak, pathetic, disloyal. He couldn't even stand up for his friend. Well, Anderson, you need to grow a spine. Now, in fact, I did just the opposite. Now, I don't like Kathy Griffin. She's not my cup of tea. But you know what? Kathy Griffin is being a hypocrite. So she goes to this press conference today shedding crocodile tears and calling on people to respect freedom of speech. But here's the point. Has she ever stood up for a single conservative when they come under fire from the left? You know what? When they say things she disagrees with, has she ever said a word? Now, this week, liberal fascists, well, they've tried to take me off the air, silence my voice, get me fired, and so many of you have helped me out and come to my defense, and I thank you for that very much. Did Kathy Griffin, she ever speak out in my defense and say I had a right to voice my opinion? Not that I know of, not a peep. Now, in fact, we could not find, and we looked really hard, for a single example of Kathy Griffin ever standing up for a conservative voice that was under attack by the left. Now, this is the liberal double standard that we're talking about tonight, and we want to give you another example to help prove our point. Now, yesterday, President Trump, he made the decision to pull the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement. By the way, a huge win for business, for people out of work, for workers, people in the energy sector, a huge win for America. And the commander-in-chief, well, he showed true leadership. He fulfilled another campaign promise, and President Trump showed once again he's putting America first. Otherwise, we'd lose 3 million jobs. Now, we're going to have more on that later in the program with Larry Elder, but first, let's take a look how Democrats, these people in Hollywood, Learjet liberals, members of the Destroy Trump media, how they reacted. For example, Hollywood hypocrite, liberal Michael Moore tweeted, "Trump just committed a crime against humanity." Now, this admitted predator has now expanded his predatory acts to the entire planet. And then a hashtag Paris Accord. He also went on to tweet, USA to Earth, F you. Or how about this tweet from Bette Midler, quote, "There has never been in U.S. history been such a destructive megalomaniac in the White House. Thank you to the U.S. press and other numbskulls who put him there." But it wasn't just celebrities who were out there raging, I mean raging against the president. Now, we want to show you a cartoon that was published today in the Washington Post. Now, be warned, this cartoon is graphic and disturbing, like so many other things liberals put out there, showing the president sitting on the toilet. Pretty unbelievable. Washington Post, really? A newspaper? Now the media is also publishing headlines like this from the New York Daily News. "Trump to the world, drop dead." Or this from a page from a German tabloid telling Trump to F you. And then, of course, there's the Destroy Trump media. You got to watch this completely unhinged, abusively biased, rigidly left ideological coverage. Take a look.
This will be the day that the United States resigned as the leader of the free world. It's nothing short of that.
On a sunny day in the Rose Garden, what could be defined and construed as a dark speech.
It's about finding a way to do both, to have our economy flourish without our children dying from asthma. I mean, it was one of the most cynical, sort of prepared sets of remarks that I've heard from the president since Inauguration Day.
He just came back from this European trip, and he was angry with the leader of Germany, Ms. Merkel, and the new leader of France. So what you have here is a president who's lashing out in anger. We haven't been president this psychologically troubled in this way since at least Richard Nixon.
Now, if you can believe it, the reaction from Democrats was even more apocalyptic. Take a look at this.
Lower-income and minority families are disproportionately vulnerable to the ravages of the climate crisis. It's a civil rights issue. Environmental justice is. How is he ever going to explain to his grandchildren what he did to the air they breathe, assuming they breathe air?
The president was not truthful with the American people today, and the president who talked about putting America first has now put America last.
People are going to die. Habitat will be destroyed. Seas will rise. Insects will spread in areas they've never been before. This is not a game. It's not politics to talk to your base. It's humanity and whether it makes it through the 21st century.
This is like a left-wing mass psychosis that is happening here. They're deranged, completely unhinged. Now, liberals, they should be up in arms over what we just showed you. Imagine if that was President Obama that they were talking about. You know what? Where's the Clinton Soros group that's been trying to get me fired now? Funny, they haven't said a word about those disgusting remarks or the abusively biased coverage on the left. On this program, by the way, no matter how ridiculous the left becomes, I'm always going to stick up for their right to spew their stupidity. We'll just point it out. Now, as we have seen over and over again, whether it's Kathy Griffin and her pleas for freedom of speech or Nancy Pelosi's constant defense of civil liberties, you know what? The left, liberals in this country, they're such hypocrites. They always seem to be silent when any conservative comes under attack, not a peep. And by the way, that goes for some of my colleagues, liberals on cable television. They never spoke out in favor of Sean Hannity not being boycotted, all in an attempt to silence me and get me fired. Now, that is the left's dangerous free speech double standard, and it is now more obvious than it's ever been. Here with reaction is the host of Michelle Malkin Investigates CRTV, Michelle Malkin. I'm not surprised you're laughing. It's sort of like a group psychotic, meltdown, isn't it?
It is, Sean. The left is self-immolating, and this Kathy Griffin press conference was an utter dumpster fire. She really is the worst kind of soulless troll, And I really don't have anything better to say about Lisa Bloom, who is essentially a mooching tick on a soulless troll. I think the worst part of the press conference was the crocodile tears, as you mentioned, of Kathy Griffin, and an outright lie. You know, on top of everything else, Kathy Griffin is just the worst kind of liar, because she said she would never hurt a child, even though she is on record in an interview with Vulture magazine last year saying that she specifically was going to target, right, that she was going to target Barron Trump as a mother of a 13-year-old son who would have just been as traumatized by that bloody, sick, and vile image of Donald Trump that Kathy Griffin and Tyler Shields were responsible for. As a mother, my blood boils. All that said,
the exact quote, Michelle.
Yes.
The exact quote, I said I would go after Barron Trump. Comedians should be able to go after everyone. So she did. And then they doubted whether or not the Trump family was telling the truth, that Barron happened to see it on TV and it upset him. I think that would upset any 11-year-old kid if they see their father's head in this ISIS pose of hers, or ISIS-like pose of hers, with a decapitated, severed head of their father. So, you know, the crocodile tears, cry me a river.
That's right. And then the doubling and tripling down by Kathy Griffin's enablers and supporters in continuing to attack the Trump family, and specifically Barron Trump. It is unacceptable. And I agree with you, Sean, that yes, the answer to bad speech or speech with which we disagree is more and better speech. But where are the honest, good faith liberals, all of the fair weather friends of free speech, to talk about and to use their own free speech to say, this is where we draw the line. We do not accept this. And you know, I've covered this. You know, part of the reason why I was chuckling was I wrote a book called Unhinged, Exposing Liberals Gone Wild 11 years ago. I had an entire chapter on assassination fascination and the left's sick fetish of using politically violent images to try and demonize and marginalize conservatives. And this is where the danger comes in, because they, as a rule, as an ideological tool, have tried to criminalize conservative political dissent. That's what they've done to us. Look at, you know, the entire years of the Bush years, or look even during the Obama years when they went after Sarah Palin for using an innocuous target sign to blame every last act of random violence on right-wing conservatives. And they were shameless about it. And you are right, Sean, to call them out. Where were these people to defend our political speech when it was literally under fire?
Michelle Malkin, very well said. Very well said. And there were only two liberals that stood up for me, Lanny Davis and Rick Unger. The only two. Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. Now, wait till you see what we got coming up here. Well, Kathy Griffin blaming old white men that are coming after her. And she actually claimed that, you know, comedians should be able to do this to everyone. And the president's trying to destroy her. She's playing the victim. And by the way, if she was a man, she says this wouldn't happen. We've got this bizarre press conference. That's coming up with this tonight.
There's a bunch of old white guys trying to silence me. And I'm just here to say that's wrong.
All right, during today's press conference, Kathy Griffin blaming so many people, playing the victim. We'll explain who she's blaming, and we'll get reaction. Lou Dobbs joins us, and President Trump fulfills his huge campaign promise by pulling the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Well, liberals won't tell Americans just how bad this deal was. We will. Larry Elder joins us. All of that, plus part two of my interview with the Vice President, Mike Pence, as he discusses how hard it is to govern while all the media talks about is Russia, 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 Russia on this busy Friday breaking news night.